Hey guys, tonight we slip into the steamy, sandal-slapping world of a Roman public bathhouse where the air hums with chatter and the faint scent of olive oil lingers. Picture yourself trudging through a bustling Roman street, dodging carts and stray dogs until a grand stone archway looms ahead. The bathhouse doors swing open, and you're hit with a wall of warm, damp air, laughter echoing off mosaic tiles. It's not just a place to scrub off the day's grime. It's the heart of the city, where senators gossip, merchants haggle, and everyone pretends they're not eyeing each other's sandals. Fair warning, you probably won't survive the social gauntlet of a Roman bath without a few awkward stares. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step onto the smooth stone floor, worn slick by countless feet. The bathhouse sprawls before you, a maze of vaulted ceilings and shimmering pools alive with the clatter of wooden clogs and the splash of water. It's late afternoon, prime time, and the place buzzes like a marketplace. Men and women, some baths are mixed, others split by gender, mingle in a chaotic dance of towels and bravado. Historians note that by the 1st century CE, Rome boasted nearly 1,000 bathhouses, from grimy neighborhood dives to imperial palaces like the baths of Caracalla, where thousands bathed daily. You're in a mid-tier 1 grand, but not overwhelming, with colorful frescoes of dolphins and nymphs grinning down from the walls. Your first stop is the entrance, where a clerk lounges behind a counter, flipping bronze coins like he's auditioning for a street show. You hand over a small fee, a quadrans barely a quarter of a sesterce, and he waves you in with a bored grunt. Don't expect a warm welcome. This guy's seen 1,000 faces today. As you shuffle forward, you notice the crowd, a merchant boasting about his new silk shipment, a poet muttering verses to himself, and a gaggle of kids darting between legs, probably sneaking in without paying. A quirky tidbit. Some Romans believed bathhouses were haunted by spirits called larvae, mischievous ghosts who'd pinch your towel if you weren't careful. You clutch yours a bit tighter. The air grows warmer as you move deeper, the hum of voices blending with the trickle of fountains. You're not just here to get clean. Bathing's a ritual, a status symbol, a way to see and be seen. Historians still argue whether bathhouses deepened social divides or leveled them, since everyone from slaves to senators soaked together. Yet wealthier patrons flaunted pricier oils and bigger entourages. You spot a man with a comically large towel strutting like he owns the place. He probably spent half his wages on that thing. Before you dive into the pools, you need to ditch your street clothes, which means heading to the Apodyterium, the changing room. You weave through the crowd, past a vendor hawking questionable sausages, pro tip, skip those, and toward a doorway framed by chipped statues of Hercules. The bathhouse is a world unto itself, and every job here, from the guy stoking the fires to the one scraping your back, keeps this steamy circus running. You're about to meet them all, starting with the unsung heroes of the changing room. But for now, take a deep breath of that humid air and let the chaos wash over you. You push through the crowd, the bathhouse's steamy hum wrapping around you like a damp cloak, and step into the Apodyterium, the changing room where Romans stashed their street clothes and their dignity. The air's cooler here, but still thick with the tang of sweat and cheap perfume. Rows of stone shelves line the walls, stuffed with neatly folded tunics, cloaks, and the occasional toga, though only a show-off wears one to the baths. You're handed a rough linen towel by a harried attendant, a wiry guy with a squint who's clearly over today's nonsense. His job: keep your stuff safe while you splash around, and trust me, it's no picnic. You find an empty shelf and start peeling off your sandals, the leather straps caked with street dust. The attendant hovers nearby, eyeing a group of rowdy teenagers tossing a sandal like it's a ball. "Oi, knock it off," he barks, voice cutting through the chatter. These guys, often slaves or freedmen, are the bathhouse's first line of defense against chaos. They hand out towels, point you to the right rooms, and guard your belongings from sticky fingers. Historical records like inscriptions from Pompeii show bathhouses were prime spots for petty theft, wallets. Jewelry, even fancy sandals, vanished if you didn't tip the attendant to keep an eye out. You slip him a bronze coin, and he nods, tucking it into a pouch with a smirk. The Apodyterium buzzes with life. A lawyer muttering about a court case, a woman fussing over her hairpins, and a kid sneaking a fig from someone's bag. You notice the floor's mosaic faded fish swimming in loops, and wonder how many feet have scuffed it over the years. A quirky tidbit floats up: some Romans used crocodile dung paste as a skin cream before bathing, swearing it kept them youthful. You grimace, hoping nobody hears slathered in that. The attendant, catching your expression, chuckles. "Seen worse," he mutters, gesturing at a guy with a comically oversized oil flask. Your job now is to change without flashing the whole room. No lockers, just open shelves and wandering eyes. You drape your tunic carefully, mimicking the neat folds of wealthier patrons, though your threadbare cloth betrays you. The attendant's watching a shifty-looking guy lingering near the shelves, hand twitching toward a cloak. "Not on my watch," he growls, stomping over. These workers juggle vigilance and customer service, all while dodging complaints from entitled patrons who expect their sandals polished, too. Historians still argue whether attendants were trusted or despised. Some sources call them loyal, others say they'd sell your cloak for a quick profit. You're ready to move on, but not before a quick scan of the room. A woman's arguing with another attendant over a missing ring, her voice sharp enough to crack the tiles. You sidestep the drama, clutching your towel, and head toward the warm baths. The attendant calls after you. "Don't leave your oil flask behind unless you want it borrowed." His sarcasm lands like a well-aimed dart, and you double-check your tiny vial of olive oil, your one bathhouse luxury. Remember that crocodile dung tidbit? Yeah, you're sticking to plain oil, no matter how radiant the alternatives claim to be. As you leave the Apodyterium, the attendant's already back to his post, scanning the crowd like a hawk. His world is this noisy, cramped room, where every day is a battle against thieves, whiners, and lost sandals. You're grateful for his sharp eyes, even if his bedside manner's rougher than the towel scratching your skin. The bathhouse's warmth beckons, promising hot pools and new faces, but you'll need to navigate the next crew, those sweaty souls keeping the whole place toasty. For now, you step forward, the din of the changing room fading behind you. You leave the Apodyterium's clamor behind your towel slung over your shoulder, and follow a narrow corridor where the air grows heavier, warmer, like a hug from a slightly sweaty giant. The stone walls glisten with condensation, and your sandals slap against the floor, echoing faintly. You're heading toward the heart of the bathhouse's heat, but first you detour down a dim staircase guided by a flickering oil lamp. The temperature spikes and a faint smell of smoke and charcoal hits you. You're about to meet the unsung heroes of the bathhouse, the furnace stokers, the guys who keep this steamy paradise from turning into a chilly flop. You reach the hypocaust basement, a low-ceilinged warren of brick and soot. It's a different world down here, dark, stifling, and loud with the crackle of fire. You spot a team of stokers, shirtless and glistening with sweat, shoveling wood into roaring furnaces. Their faces are smudged with ash, and they move with the grim efficiency of men who know one slip could singe their eyebrows off. These workers, often slaves or the lowest-paid freedmen, keep the hypocaust system running, a network of underfloor channels that heat the bathhouse's floors and pools. Historical texts like those from Vitruvius describe how Roman engineers designed these systems to circulate hot air, making baths like this one a marvel of ancient tech. Without the stokers' endless toil, you'd be shivering in lukewarm water upstairs. You pause near a furnace, feeling the heat radiate like a dragon's breath. A stoker, a burly guy with a scar across his forearm, tosses in a log and wipes his brow. "Hot enough for ya," he quips, his grin half hidden by soot. You nod, trying not to cough as smoke tickles your throat. The work's brutal 12-hour shifts, constant burns and air so thick, it's like breathing soup. A quirky tidbit: some stokers believed rubbing garlic on their skin warded off heat stroke. You spot one rubbing a clove on his neck, and you're not sure whether to laugh or ask for a slice. The hypocaust's floor is raised on small brick pillars, creating a hollow space where hot air flows from the furnaces. You crouch, peering into the dark channels, and feel a blast of warmth on your face. It's ingenious but unforgiving: one clogged channel, and the whole system falters. The stokers don't just feed the fires. They clear ash, check airflow, and dodge sparks. You notice a younger worker, barely a teen, hauling a basket of wood, his arms trembling. "Keep up, kid," the scarred stoker calls, half teasing, half warning. Historians still argue whether these workers were skilled laborers or just expendable muscle. Some sources praise their expertise. Others call them the bathhouse's forgotten drudges. You're ready to head back upstairs, but not before a stoker hands you a clay cup of water from a bucket. "Drink," he says, "or you'll keel over." You sip gratefully, the water tepid but welcome. The guy's got a point down here. Dehydration's a bigger threat than a stolen sandal. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen from the changing room? You're starting to think garlic and soot might be the stoker's version of self-care. You chuckle, earning a raised eyebrow from the scarred guy who's already back to shoveling. As you climb the stairs, the basement's heat clings to you, a reminder of the stoker's world. They're the bathhouse's heartbeat, keeping the floors toasty and the pools steaming, all while the patrons upstairs splash and gossip, oblivious. Your towel's damp from the humid air, and you're itching for a dip, but the next stop's the water itself, where another crew makes sure it flows like a dream. You step back into the main bathhouse, the roar of the furnaces fading, and brace for the next wave of this steamy saga. You emerge from the smoky basement, the stoker's furnace roar fading, as you step back into the bathhouse's main flow, where the air hums with chatter and the splash of water. Your towel's already damp from the humidity, and your sandals squeak on the slick tiles as you head toward the heart of the bathhouse, the pools. But before you dive in, you pause at a corner where a steady trickle echoes from a stone spout. It's not magic keeping these baths filled. It's the work of the water engineers, the unsung geniuses who make sure every fountain, pool, and pipe runs like a well-oiled chariot. You're about to see their world, and trust me, it's a lot more than unclogging drains. You follow the sound of running water to a maintenance alcove where a lean man in a patched tunic crouches beside a lead pipe, muttering to himself. His tools, hammers, chisels, and a wad of linen for leaks are scattered like a toddler's toys. He's a water engineer, part of the team that keeps the bathhouse's lifeblood flowing. You glance up, noticing the faint outline of an aqueduct channel carved into the wall feeding water from the city's vast network. Historical records like Frontinus's treatises on Rome's aqueducts boast that the empire's water system delivered millions of gallons daily, enough to keep baths, fountains, and even private homes gushing. This bathhouse taps into that grid, and it's the engineer's job to make it work. The engineer spots you and waves you closer, pointing at the pipe. "See this sediment's choking it," he grumbles, scraping out a gritty sludge. His hands are calloused, stained with rust, and he smells faintly of wet clay. The job's a mix of brains and brawn, calculating water pressure, patching leaks, and wrestling with valves that haven't budged since Nero was emperor. You watch him tighten a joint, water spraying his face before he plugs the leak with linen. A quirky tidbit: Romans sometimes added wine to their bathwater, believing it softened their skin. You imagine this guy rolling his eyes at patrons whining about the vintage not being right. You step back, following the pipe's path to a larger channel, where water gurgles toward the main pools. The engineer trails you, explaining how the aqueduct's slope, barely a few degrees, keeps the flow steady. It's a marvel, but it's not foolproof. Algae mineral buildup and the occasional dead pigeon clog the system, and the engineers are on call day and night. You spot another worker knee-deep in a drainage trench, fishing out debris with a long pole. "Missed bath time again," he calls to his partner, who snorts. Their banter's the only thing lighter than the water they wrangle. Historians still argue whether these engineers were elite craftsmen or just glorified plumbers. Some sources praise their mathematical precision. Others dismiss them as dirty-handed laborers. Either way, you're grateful as you watch the spout gush clear again, feeding the steaming pools you're itching to try. The engineer hands you a small clay token, a pass to the hot baths. "Don't drop it in the drain," he says, his sarcasm sharper than his chisel. You pocket it, remembering the stoker's garlic rubbing ritual. Maybe these guys have their own weird trick, like whispering to the pipes. As you leave the alcove, the bathhouse's warmth wraps around you again, the promise of a soak pulling you forward. The engineers stay behind their work, invisible to the splashing patrons, but vital to every drop. You're ready to meet the next crew, the ones who'll scrub you clean with tools that look like they belong in a gladiator's kit. For now, you clutch your token and your towel, dodging a kid who's sprinting with someone else's sandal, probably swiped from the Apodyterium. The bathhouse's chaos is calling, and you're diving in. You weave through this bathhouse's steamy maze, the air thick with the scent of wet stone and faint lavender. Your clay token clutched tight as you head toward the warm pools. The hum of voices and the splash of water grow louder, and you step into the tepidarium, a spacious room where the floor's toasty under your feet, thanks to those furnace stokers you met earlier. The pool shimmers its surface, rippling as bathers lounge and gossip. But before you can dip a toe, a stocky woman with a no-nonsense stare beckons you over. She's one of the bathers' assistants, the crew who'll scrape, scrub, and polish you until you're gleaming, or at least less like you just rolled through a Roman alley. You're about to get up close and personal with her strigil, and it's not as cozy as it sounds. You sit on a stone bench, and the assistant hands you a small vial of olive oil. "Slather it on," she says, her voice like a tired schoolteacher's. You rub the oil over your arms and legs, the slickness feeling oddly luxurious, despite the gritty bench digging into your thighs. This is the Roman way: oil up, let it soak in the dirt, and sweat, then scrape it off. The assistant brandishes her strigil, a curved bronze tool that looks like a cross between a spoon and a dagger, and gets to work. She drags it across your arm, peeling away oil-dead skin, and who knows what else in satisfying curls. Historical records like those from Pliny the Elder describe strigils as essential for cleanliness, used by everyone from athletes to emperors. You wince as she hits a sensitive spot, but she just smirks. Toughen up, city boy. The tepidarium buzzes around you. A senator's getting the deluxe treatment, his assistant using a fancy silver strigil, while a kid nearby squirms under a less gentle scrape. The assistants, often slaves or low-paid workers, are masters of efficiency, working in pairs or solo to keep the bathers moving. A quirky tidbit: some Romans swore by strigil scrapings as a medical cure, collecting the gunk for ointments. You glance at the pile by your feet and decide you'll stick to plain oil, thanks. The assistant catches your look and chuckles. Not saving that for your sweetheart, are you? Her hands are quick, scraping your back with rhythmic precision, while she dodges a splash from a nearby bather. The job's no picnic: long hours, cranky patrons, and the constant risk of slipping on oily tiles. You notice her tunic's stained with oil and sweat, but her focus never wavers. She switches to a sponge, dabbing your shoulders with warm water to finish the job. Historians still argue whether these assistants were skilled professionals or just grunt laborers. Some sources praise their technique. Others call them the bathhouse's lowest rung. Either way, you're grateful as your skin feels fresher than it has in weeks, even if your ego's a bit bruised from her teasing. You're ready to move on, but not before she hands you back your oil vial, now half empty. "Don't waste it," she says, already eyeing her next client, a guy who's clearly over-oiled himself into a walking slip hazard. You stifle a laugh, remembering the engineer's pipe whispering and the stoker's garlic rubs. Maybe this crew's quirk is their brutal honesty. You stand your towel slightly askew and head toward the hotter pools where new faces and smells await. The assistant calls after you. "Stay out of trouble, or at least don't blame me." Her sarcasm's sharper than her strigil, and you're starting to see the bathhouse's rhythm. Every worker from the basement to the benches keeps this chaotic world spinning. You step away, the tepidarium's warmth lingering on your newly scraped skin, and brace for the next encounter. The bathhouse is a living machine, and you're about to meet the ones selling the oil that keeps it literally running smoothly. For now, you dodge a bather who's strutting like he just invented cleanliness, and let the steamy air pull you deeper. You stride out of the tepidarium, your skin tingling from the strigil's scrape, the bathhouse's steamy pulse urging you deeper into its heart. The air's thicker now, heavy with heat, and the faint whiff of herbs as you enter a bustling corridor leading to the caldarium, the hot bath where Romans go to sweat and swagger. But before you plunge into the scalding pool, you're drawn to a small stall tucked against the wall, where a wiry man with a crooked grin hawks vials of oil, like they're the secret to eternal youth. These are the oil sellers, the bathhouse's slick-talking merchants, who keep every bather gleaming and their own pockets jingling. You're about to haggle your way through their world, and it's a game of wits as much as wallets. You approach the stall where glass and clay vials glint under a flickering oil lamp, each filled with olive oil infused with lavender rosemary, or something suspiciously murky. The seller leans forward, his tunic slightly frayed, but his smile polished. "Finest oil in Rome, my friend, makes your skin glow like Apollo's," he says, holding up a vial that costs more than your weekly bread budget. You hesitate, still clutching the half-empty vial from the strigil session, but he's already sizing you up, guessing how many coins you've got. Historical records like those from the Edict of Diocletian show that quality olive oil was a luxury often pricier than wine, and bathhouses were prime spots for selling it to status-hungry patrons. You're not a senator, but you're tempted. He uncorks a vial, waving it under your nose. The rosemary scent's nice, but you're not sold on his imported from Crete spiel. Smells like my aunt's stew, you quip, earning a theatrical gasp. Stew. This is divine nectar, he retorts undeterred. A quirky tidbit. Some sellers spiked their oils with oddities like crushed pearl or saffron, claiming it boosted virility or charm. You eye a cloudy vial and hope it's not laced with anything too weird, like that crocodile dung cream you heard about in the Apodyterium. The seller catches your glance and winks. That one's for brave souls only. You haggle, offering a few bronze coins for a small lavender vial. He groans like you've stabbed him, but after some back and forth, he relents, tossing in a tiny clay jar for your next visit. His stall's a hub of chatter. A wealthy matron buys a fancy flask, a kid tries to swipe a sample, and a grumpy old man complains the prices are highway robbery. The sellers juggle sales flattery and the occasional dodge of a thrown sandal when a deal sours. Historians still argue whether these vendors were savvy entrepreneurs or just bathhouse hustlers. Some sources call them essential to the bathing ritual. Others paint them as opportunistic leeches. You tuck your new vial into your towel, feeling briefly like a high roller, and step away as the seller's already charming his next mark. His patter fades into the bathhouse's din, but his grin sticks with you, part con man, part lifesaver. Remember the stoker's garlic or the engineer's pipe whispering? These guys' quirk is their silver tongue turning every sale into a performance. You're ready for the caldarium's heat, but not before dodging a bather who's doused himself in so much oil he's practically a human torch. Easy there, lamp boy, you mutter, earning a scowl. The bathhouse's chaos never quits, and you're loving every sweaty second. You move toward the caldarium's glowing entrance, the promise of a soak and maybe a massage pulling you forward. The oil seller's voice lingers, a reminder that every corner of this place runs on hustle. Next up, you'll meet the ones who'll knead your shoulders into submission, assuming you survive the hot pool's boil. For now, you grip your towel and your new oil, ready to dive deeper into this steamy, slippery world. You step away from the oil seller's stall, your new lavender vial tucked safely in your towel, and push through the bathhouse's steamy haze toward the caldarium. The heat hits you like a wall, the air so thick it's like breathing soup, and the hot pool glows under flickering lamps, its surface rippling with bathers who look half melted already. You're ready to soak, but first you're drawn to a corner where a broad-shouldered woman kneads a patron's back like she's punishing a lump of dough. These are the masseuses, the bathhouse's miracle workers, who turn knotted muscles into pudding if you can handle their iron grip. You're about to lie down and let her work her magic, and trust me, it's a mix of bliss and ow my spine. You settle onto a stone slab, warm from the hypocaust below, and the masseuse sizes you up, cracking her knuckles with a sound like snapping twigs. Rough day hauling grain sacks, she asks, her voice dry as old papyrus. You mumble something about dodging carts, and she snorts, pouring a drizzle of your lavender oil onto her palms. She starts with your shoulders, her hands digging into knots you didn't know you had. Historical records like those from Galen note that massage was a staple of Roman bathing, seen as both medical and indulgent, with techniques borrowed from Greek athletes and Egyptian healers. Her fingers find a sore spot, and you wince, earning a chuckle. Breathe, or you'll faint like that guy yesterday. The caldarium hums around you, Bathers splash in the pool, steam curls off the walls, and another masseuse nearby wrestles with a senator who's whining about his delicate back. The masseuses, often women or freedmen, are skilled but overworked, their hands slick with oil and sweat as they juggle demanding clients. A quirky tidbit: some Romans believed massages could cure baldness, and you spot a shiny pated man begging for an extra scalp rub. You stifle a laugh, and your masseuse mutters, "He's been at it for months, no luck." Her sarcasm's sharper than the strigil you met earlier. Her hands move to your lower back, kneading with a rhythm that's almost hypnotic, though every deep press makes you question your life choices. The job's grueling hours of bending, lifting, and dodging complaints from patrons who think they're Jupiter incarnate. You notice her tunic's frayed at the hem, but her focus is laser sharp, even as a kid sprints by, nearly knocking over an oil jar. Historians still argue whether masseuses were respected healers or just glorified servants. Some sources praise their knowledge of anatomy, others dismiss them as bathhouse grunts. Either way, you're half asleep under her hands, the caldarium's heat, and her steady pressure melting your stress. She finishes with a light slap on your back, startling you awake. "You're done, don't nap here all night," she says, already waving over her next client, a guy who looks like he wrestles oxen for fun. You sit up, muscles loose but slightly battered, and thank her with a nod. Remember the oil seller's silver tongue or the stoker's garlic rubs? These masseuses' quirk is their brutal honesty, calling out your bad posture like it's a personal offense. You chuckle, grabbing your towel, and dodge a bather who's waddling out of the hot pool red as a boiled crab. "Easy, lobster man," you mutter, earning a glare. You're ready to move on the caldarium's heat clinging to you like a second skin. The masseuse's work lingers in your loosened shoulders, a reminder of the bathhouse's hidden artisans. Next, you'll meet the barbers whose razors are as questionable as their jokes. For now, you weave through the steam, the promise of cooler air, and new faces pulling you forward, your lavender oil vial still safe. Unlike that poor guy's dignity back in the Apodyterium, you ease out of the caldarium's sweltering embrace, your muscles loosened by the masseuse's iron hands, and step into a slightly cooler corridor, where the air feels like a gentle slap instead of a furnace blast. Your towel's damp, your lavender oil vial still safe, and the bathhouse's hum splashes laughter, and the occasional shout follows you like a chatty shadow. You're headed toward a small alcove, where a sharp metallic glint catches your eye, paired with the sound of snipping and a man's yelp. Welcome to the barber's nook, where haircuts, shaves, and questionable tools turn Roman bathers into either polished citizens or accidental victims. You're about to trust a stranger with a blade, and it's as thrilling as it sounds. You settle onto a wooden stool, the seat worn smooth by countless nervous backsides, and a lanky barber with a patchy beard sizes you up. "Trim or shave?" he asks, brandishing a bronze razor that looks like it's seen better days or worse gladiator fights. You opt for a trim, hoping to keep your ears intact. He starts snipping with iron shears, his hands steady, but his chatter relentless. "Heard about that senator's new wig fell off in the pool," he cackles, and you force a smile, praying he doesn't get distracted. Historical records like those from Suetonius note that barbers were fixtures in bathhouses, offering everything from haircuts to beard grooming, often doubling as gossip hubs for Rome's latest scandals. The nook's cramped with two other barbers working on patrons, one's shaving a man's face, the blade scraping like a strigil on steroids, while another wrestles with a kid's curly mop. The tools, razors, combs, and shears are laid out on a rickety table next to a bowl of water that's suspiciously cloudy. A quirky tidbit, Romans sometimes used spider webs as a shaving salve, believing it stopped bleeding. You glance at a sticky wad on the table and hope your barber sticks to plain water, though his trust me grin isn't reassuring. Better than crocodile dung, right? He quips, winking, and you nod, recalling that Apodyterium horror story. His shears snip closer to your scalp, each clip making you flinch, but he's skilled shaping your hair into something vaguely respectable. The job's no-breeze barbers deal with fussy clients' dull blades and the constant risk of nicking an ear, all while keeping the gossip flowing. You notice his tunics stained with hair and oil, and his eyes dart to a patron who's grumbling about a botched shave. Historians still argue whether barbers were trusted artisans or just bathhouse opportunists. Some sources praise their dexterity, others call them careless butchers. Either way, you're relieved as he finishes brushing stray hairs off your shoulders with a rag that's seen better days. You stand running a hand through your trimmed hair and toss him a coin. Not bad for a rookie, he teases, already waving over a burly guy who's demanding a full shave. You dodge a pile of clipped hair on the floor, remembering the masseuse's brutal honesty, or the oil seller's slick patter barber's quirk is their knack for turning every snip into a storytelling session. You chuckle, sidestepping a bather who's admiring his new haircut in a polished bronze mirror, looking like he just won a chariot race. Easy Narcissus, you mutter, earning a scowl. You're ready to move on the bathhouse's steamy rhythm, pulling you toward the next corner of this chaotic world. The barber's chatter fades, but their blade's glint lingers in your mind, a reminder of the fine line between grooming and disaster. Next, you'll meet the food vendors whose snacks are as tempting as they are risky. For now, you grip your towel and weave through the crowd, the promise of a bite or a dodge waiting just ahead. You slip away from the barber's nook, your freshly trimmed hair feeling oddly light, and weave through the bathhouse's steamy corridors, the air buzzing with laughter and the splash of distant pools. Your towel's starting to feel like a second skin, and your lavender oil vial jingles faintly in its fold. The heat's dialed down a notch, but the scent of sweat and herbs still lingers now, mingling with something new, roasted nuts maybe, or bread gone slightly stale. You follow the aroma to a crowded corner, where a wiry vendor hawks snacks from a wicker tray, his voice cutting through the din like a street crier's. These are the food vendors, the bathhouse's culinary gamblers, serving up treats that range from tasty to, did I just eat a sandal? You're about to dive into their world, and it's a roll of the dice. You sidle up to the vendor's stall, a rickety setup with trays of figs, nuts, and questionable pastries glistening under the lamplight. The vendor, a sunburned man with a gap-toothed grin, thrusts a skewer of roasted chickpeas at you. Fresh as a Vestal's vow, he boasts, though the chickpeas look like they've been sitting since dawn. You hesitate, your stomach rumbling, but your common sense screaming. Historical records like those from Apicius show bathhouses doubled as snack spots, with vendors selling cheap eats to hungry bathers, think olives, bread, or honeyed figs, though quality varied wildly. You pick a safer-looking fig, hoping it's not hiding a surprise. You hand over a coin, and the vendor winks, tossing in a handful of almonds for luck. You pop a fig in your mouth, its sweetness cut by a faint grit, sand maybe, or just bad luck. Better than the sausages, he quips, nodding at a tray of greasy links that smell like regret. A quirky tidbit, some vendors sold bathhouse specials laced with garum, that fishy Roman sauce, claiming it boosted stamina. You eye a dubious pastry glistening with something fishy and decide your stamina's fine, thanks. The vendor catches your look and laughs. Not brave enough for the good stuff. The corner's a circus. A kid swipes a nut and bolts, a matron haggles over a basket of dates, and a drunk bather drops his bread in a puddle, cursing loud enough to wake a coma patient. Vendors like this guy juggle sales, rowdy patrons, and the constant threat of spoiled goods in the humid air. You notice his trays swarming with flies, and he swats them with a rag like he's fighting a tiny army. Historians still argue whether these vendors were savvy hustlers or desperate peddlers. Some sources call them vital to the bathhouse vibe, others paint them as borderline con artists. Either way, you're grateful for the fig, even if it's a bit crunchy. You step back, munching your almonds as the vendor hawks his wares to a new crowd, his pitch as slick as the oil sellers. Remember the barber's gossip or the masseuse's brutal honesty? These guys' quirk is their relentless optimism, selling every snack like it's a gourmet triumph. You chuckle, dodging a bather who's juggling a pastry and a towel, nearly losing both. Watch it, buffet king, you mutter, earning a glare. The bathhouse's chaos is a living thing, and you're riding its wave. You're ready to move on, the vendor's voice fading into the steamy din. The figs and almonds settle your stomach, but you're bracing for the next stop, where entertainers add a spark to this sweaty world. For now, you clutch your towel and weave through the crowd, the promise of music or mischief. Just around the corner, your lavender oil vial still safe, unlike that poor guy's bread back there. You leave the food vendor's corner, the taste of gritty figs lingering as you navigate the bathhouse's steamy maze, your towel damp and your lavender oil vial still tucked safe. The air pulses with the usual clamor, splashes, shouts, and the clack of wooden clogs. But now a new sound weaves through a lilting flute melody joined by the soft twang of a lyre. You follow it, drawn like a moth to a flame, and find yourself in an open courtyard where the heat's gentler, the ceiling open to a dusky sky. Here a trio of entertainers, a flutist, a lyre player, and a dancer, work their magic, turning the bathhouse's sweaty chaos into something almost poetic. You're about to soak in their world, and it's a rare moment of grace in this steamy circus. You lean against a pillar, the stone cool against your shoulder, and watch the flutist, a wiry woman with fingers dancing over her reed pipe, coaxing out a tune that feels like a breeze on a hot day. The lyre player, an older man with a graying beard, strums a gentle counterpoint, his eyes half closed, like he's lost in the music. The dancer, a young man in a flowing tunic, twirls with a tray of ribbons, his steps light despite the slick tiles. Historical records like those from Juvenal note that bathhouses often hosted musicians and performers to keep patrons lingering and spending. These entertainers are the bathhouse's heartbeat-lifting spirits without breaking a sweat. The crowd's entranced, a merchant sways to the rhythm, a kid mimics the dancer's spins, and even a grumpy senator taps his foot, though he'd never admit it. The flutist catches your eye and winks her melody, shifting to a cheeky trill that makes you grin. A quirky tidbit, some entertainers doubled as fortune tellers, reading omens in the steam, or a bather's dropped sandal. You spot a woman whispering to the lyre player, probably asking if her new oil will snag her a rich husband. You chuckle, imagining her disappointment when he predicts more figs, less luck. The entertainer's job isn't all glamour. They dodge thrown nuts, play through hecklers, and keep smiling, even when a drunk bather demands a military march. You notice the dancer's tunic is patched, and the flutist's reed is fraying, but their performance is flawless, weaving a spell over the courtyard. Historians still argue whether these performers were celebrated artists or just bathhouse filler. Some sources praise their skill, others call them glorified buskers. Either way, you're hooked, the music easing the tension from your strigil-scraped skin and that questionable fig you ate. The dancer spins closer, offering you a ribbon with a flourish. For luck, he says, his voice soft but mischievous. You take it, tying it to your towel, feeling briefly like a festival goer. Remember the food vendor's relentless hustle or the barber's gossip. These entertainers' quirk is their knack for making every note feel personal, like they're playing just for you. You toss a coin into their basket, earning a nod from the lyre player who's already strumming a new tune. You sidestep a bather who's dancing badly, arms flailing like a spooked chicken. Easy twinkle toes, you mutter, dodging his elbow. You're ready to move on, the music lingering in your ears as you head back into the bathhouse's warmer depths. The entertainer's melody fades, but their spark stays with you, a reminder that even in this sweaty chaos, there's room for beauty. Next, you'll meet the cleaners, the ones battling grime while everyone else splashes. For now, you clutch your ribbon-adorned towel and weave through the crowd, the promise of new faces and hidden struggles just ahead. Your lavender oil vial still safe, unlike that poor guy's dignity back at the food stall. You drift away from the entertainer's courtyard, the flute's melody still humming in your head, your ribbon-tied towel swaying as you re-enter the bathhouse's steamy core. The air's thick again, laced with the scent of oil and wet stone, and your sandals slip slightly on the tiles polished to a sheen by an army of unseen hands. That sheen's no accident. You're about to meet the cleaners, the bathhouse's silent warriors who battle endless grime while patrons splash and strut. Their world is one of mops rags and stubborn stains, and as you spot a hunched figure scrubbing a corner, you realize their work is what keeps this place from turning into a swamp. Buckle up. It's a gritty ride. You pause near a mosaic wall where a wiry cleaner, maybe 40, with hands like leather scrapes at a patch of algae with a bone tool. Her tunic's soaked with sweat, and she mutters something about fancy types and their oil spills. You offer a sympathetic nod, but she barely glances up, too focused on her Sisyphean task. Cleaners like her are everywhere, darting between pools and corridors armed with buckets, brushes, and an iron will. Historical records, like inscriptions from Ostia, show bathhouses employed teams of slaves or low-paid workers to keep the facilities spotless, as hygiene was a point of pride for Roman engineering. Without them, you'd be wading through a soup of hair oil, and worse. You step aside as she sloshes a bucket of water across the floor, rinsing away dirt and a stray olive pit, probably from that food vendor's corner. The work's relentless scrubbing mosaics, sweeping hair, unclogging drains, all while dodging bathers who treat the floor like a trash heap. A quirky tidbit: some cleaners used urine as a cleaning agent thanks to its ammonia content collected from public latrines. You grimace, hoping the rag she's using isn't that kind, but her wry smirk suggests she's seen worse than your expression. Missed a spot, you joke, pointing at a clean tile. She snorts. Missed a brain, more like. The bathhouse hums around you. A kid splashes in the frigidarium. A senator griping about lukewarm water. And another cleaner hauls a basket of soggy towels toward the laundry. The cleaner's job is a grind, back-breaking labor, constant damp, and zero thanks from patrons who barely notice them. You spot a younger worker, barely a teen, wrestling with a mop, twice his size, his face set in grim determination. Historians still argue whether cleaners were valued for their role or utterly invisible. Some sources hint at their necessity, others treat them as background noise. Either way, you're grateful as you step onto a gleaming tile, your sandals no longer sticking. You move on, but not before the cleaner calls after you. Don't track mud in Hero, her sarcasm's sharper than a strigil. and you check your sandals remembering the entertainer's ribbons or the barber's dodgy razors. Cleaners quirk, their bone-dry humor cutting through the bathhouse's chaos like a knife. You chuckle, dodging a bather who's dripping oil like a leaky amphora. Watch it slick, you mutter, earning a huff. The bathhouse's rhythm never slows, and you're swept along, ready for the next stop. You head toward a quieter corner, the cleaner's quiet hustle fading behind you. Their work lingers in every polished surface, a testament to the bathhouse's unseen backbone. Next, you'll meet the healers peddling cures in the steam where hope and hucksterism collide. For now, you clutch your towel, the ribbon fluttering, and weave through the crowd, your lavender oil vial still safe, unlike that poor olive pit now lost to the cleaner's wrath. You slip away from the cleaner's domain, the faint scrub of their brushes fading as you navigate the bathhouse's steamy labyrinth, your ribbon-adorned towel clinging to your shoulder, and your lavender oil vial still secure. The air's warm, thick with the scent of herbs and sweat, and the hum of voices, laughter, arguments, and the occasional splash guides you to a quieter nook where a faint whiff of mint and something medicinal cuts through the haze. You've stumbled into the healer's corner, where physicians, herbalists, and maybe a few charlatans peddle cures amid the steam, promising to fix everything from a sore back to a broken heart. You're about to dive into their world, and it's a strange brew of science, superstition, and salesmanship. You pause near a low table cluttered with clay jars, dried herbs, and a dubious-looking poultice that smells like old socks. A wiry healer, his tunic stained with green smudges, beckons you closer, his eyes glinting like he's already diagnosed your soul. Trouble sleeping? Bad humors, he asks, holding up a vial of murky liquid. You mumble something about a stiff neck, thanks masseuse, and he nods sagely, handing you a mint-scented salve. Historical records like those from Galen show bathhouses doubled as medical hubs, where healers treated ailments with herbs, oils, and hot water therapy, blending Greek medicine with Roman pragmatism. You rub the salve on, hoping it's not that urine cleaner from earlier. The nook's a hive of activity. A woman buys a cough syrup, a man argues over a toothache cure, and a kid eyes a jar of honey like it's gold. The healer's patter is smooth, promising miracles, but you're skeptical when he touts a lizard bone tonic for strength. A quirky tidbit, some healers swore by bathing in donkey milk for glowing skin, a trick Cleopatra supposedly loved. You glance at a milky jar and decide your skin's fine, thanks, especially after that crocodile dung horror story from the Apodyterium. The healer catches your grimace and chuckles. Not for the faint-hearted, eh? His job's a tightrope walk, mixing remedies, soothing whiny patrons, and dodging accusations of quackery. You watch him grind herbs with a mortar, his hands steady despite a bather's loud complaint about a failed wart cure. The steam's a healer's ally, opening pores and easing joints, but it's also a breeding ground for moldy potions and slippery floors. Historians still argue whether bathhouse healers were skilled physicians or glorified snake oil peddlers. Some sources praise their herbal knowledge, others mock their outlandish claims. Either way, your neck feels looser as the mint salve tingles, and you're grateful for the small win. You step back, pocketing the salve as the healer turns to a new client, a guy clutching his stomach, probably regretting that garum pastry from the food vendor. Remember the cleaner's dry humor or the entertainer's melodies. Healer's quirk is their knack for selling hope, even if it's just mint and optimism. You dodge a bather who's waving a miracle tonic like a trophy, muttering easy potion prints. His scowl's no match for the bathhouse's chaos, and you're already moving on the steam pulling you deeper. You head toward the bathhouse's nerve center, where managers keep this sweaty circus from imploding. The healer's minty scent lingers, a reminder of the fine line between cure and con. Next, you'll meet the Balneater, the boss, juggling coins and chaos. For now, you grip your towel, the ribbon fluttering, and weave through the crowd, your lavender oil vial still safe, unlike that poor guy's stomach back there. You ease away from the healer's nook, the minty tingle of your neck salve fading as you plunge back into the bathhouse's steamy pulse, your ribbon-tied towel damp and your lavender oil vial still snug. The air hums with the usual chaos, splashes, chatter, and the clatter of clogs. But you're drawn to a raised platform near the main pools, where a burly man in a crisp tunic barks orders like a general in a toga. This is the Balneater, the bathhouse manager, the guy who keeps this sweaty, slippery circus from collapsing under its own weight. You're about to shadow his world, and it's a high-stakes dance of coins, complaints, and keeping the peace. You linger near the platform, watching the Balneater scan the crowd like a hawk, one hand on a wax tablet, tallying fees, the other gesturing at a cleaner who's missed a spot. His voice cuts through the din, or wood to the furnaces now. You're impressed he's juggling a dozen tasks without breaking a sweat, unlike you after that caldarium stint. Historical records like those from Pompeian inscriptions show Balneaters were often freedmen or savvy entrepreneurs, leasing bathhouses from owners and running them like small empires, pocketing profits while dodging disasters. This guy's got the look of someone who's seen it all: spilled oil, stolen sandals, and worse. He spots you hovering and raises an eyebrow. "Pay your fee yet," he grumbles, assuming you're a freeloader. You flash your clay token from the water engineers, and he nods, already distracted by a matron complaining about lukewarm water. "Fix it, or swim in the Tiber," he snaps, sending a worker scurrying. A quirky tidbit: some Balneaters doubled as matchmakers, pairing wealthy patrons in the baths for profit. You catch him eyeing a senator and a merchant's daughter, muttering to an aide, probably plotting a chance meeting. You smirk, hoping it's not as shady as that donkey milk cure you dodged. The Balneater's job is a grind, collecting fees, soothing egos, and ensuring the stokers, cleaners, and engineers don't slack. You watch him settle a dispute between two bathers over a prime pool spot, his tone firm but smooth, like a bartender cutting off a drunk. The platform's littered with clay tokens and a stray fig. Someone ignored the food vendor's fresh pitch, and he sweeps it clean with a flick of his hand. Historians still argue whether Balneaters were respected bosses or glorified babysitters. Some sources praise their business acumen, others call them stressed-out middlemen. Either way, you're glad he's keeping the chaos at bay, letting you enjoy your minty neck and trimmed hair. You step back as he strides off to check the Apodyterium, barking at a loitering kid to stop splashing or walk home soggy. His sarcasm's sharper than the barber's razors, and you're starting to see the bathhouse's rhythm through his eyes. Every worker, from the healers to the cleaners, answers to him. Remember the healer's hopeful patter or the cleaner's dry wit? The Balneater's quirk is his knack for wrangling chaos like a chariot driver with a wild team. You dodge a bather who's strutting with a new massage glow, muttering, "Easy, Emperor." His huff blends into the steam and you're already moving on. You head toward the bathhouse's final guardians, the security crew keeping rowdy bathers in check. The Balneater's commands echo behind you, a reminder of the iron will holding this place together. Next, you'll meet the guards, whose stares are as sharp as their clubs. For now, you clutch your towel, the ribbon fluttering, and weave through the crowd, your lavender oil vial still safe, unlike that kid's chances if he splashes again. You slip away from the balneator's platform, his barked orders fading into the bathhouse's steamy hum as you navigate the crowded corridors, your ribbon-tied towel soggy and your lavender oil vial still tucked tight. The air's alive with splashes, laughter, and the clack of clogs, but there's a new edge, a low grunt, and a shuffle of heavy feet. You spot a broad-shouldered man leaning against a pillar, his eyes scanning the crowd like a wolf sizing up a flock. This is one of the bathhouse's security guards, the muscle keeping rowdy bathers from turning this steamy paradise into a brawl. You're about to step into their world, and it's a tense game of stares, shoves, and staying one step ahead of trouble. You pause near the frigidarium, the cold pool's chill cutting through the heat, and watch the guard adjust his leather belt, a wooden club dangling like a warning. He's got scars on his knuckles and a stare that could curdle garum. Move along, he growls at a group of teenagers loitering too long, and they scatter like startled pigeons. Guards like him, often ex-soldiers or hired freedmen, patrol the bathhouse to stop fights, thefts, and drunken antics. Historical records like those from Marshall's epigrams describe bathhouses as hotspots for rowdiness, with guards needed to break up scuffles over stolen oils or poolside flirting gone wrong. You keep your distance, not keen on testing his patience. The guard's eyes flick to a commotion by the hot pool, a red-faced bather's yelling about a missing towel pointing at a smirking kid. The guard strides over his bulk, parting the crowd, and settles it with a few sharp words and a hand on the kid's shoulder. No fists, just presence. A quirky tidbit. Some guards moonlighted as informants reporting juicy gossip to wealthy patrons for extra coin. You catch the guard muttering to a senator's aide, maybe spilling, who was cozying up in the caldarium. You smirk, wondering if he's got dirt on that balneator's matchmaking schemes. The job's no picnic, long shifts, drunk patrons, and the constant risk of a brawl, all while staying calm in a tunic that's basically a sauna itself. You notice his boots are scuffed, soaked from splashing water, but his focus never wavers, even as a bather slips and nearly takes out a mosaic. Historians still argue whether guards were respected enforcers or just hired thugs. Some sources call them essential for order. Others paint them as bullies who'd shake you down for a protection fee. Either way, you're glad he's here, keeping the chaos from boiling over, letting you enjoy your minty salve and trimmed hair. You move on, but not before the guard catches you lingering and gives a curt nod like you've passed some invisible test. "Stay out of trouble," he says, his voice low but sharp like the barber's razors. "Remember the balneator's commanding bark, or the healer's hopeful patter?" Guard's quirk is their quiet menace, saying more with a glare than a shout. You dodge a bather who's staggering from too much caldarium steam, muttering, "Easy, hothead." His stumble blends into the din, and you're already headed toward the exit, the bathhouse's rhythm winding down. You're ready for your final stop, where you'll leave this steamy world behind and reflect on its vibrant chaos. The guard's presence lingers, a reminder that even in this slippery paradise, order hangs by a thread. Next, you'll step back into the world outside, carrying the bathhouse's heat and hustle with you. For now, you clutch your towel, the ribbon soggy but intact, and weave through the crowd, your lavender oil vial still safe, unlike that kid's towel, probably halfway to the Tiber by now. You ease away from the frigidarium, the guard's steely gaze fading behind you, as you drift through the bathhouse's waning heat, your ribbon-tied towel heavy with damp, and your lavender oil vial still safe in its fold. The air's softer now, the steam thinning, as you retrace your steps toward the Apodyterium, where this steamy journey began. The bathhouse's pulse splashes chatter, and the clack of clogs feels like a familiar song. But it's time to leave, to step back into the Roman dusk and carry the weight of this vibrant world with you. You're about to reflect on every job, every face that made this place hum, and it's a bittersweet farewell to a chaos you've grown to love. You pass the main pools, their surfaces rippling under flickering lamps, and spot familiar figures, a cleaner scrubbing a stubborn stain, an oil seller hawking one last vial, a bather wincing under a strigils scrape. Each worker, from the furnace stokers to the balneater, wove this bathhouse into a living tapestry. Historical records like those from Seneca note that bathhouses were microcosms of Roman life, social, messy, and relentless, where every role, no matter how small, kept the machine running. You pause by a mosaic of a dolphin, its colors faded but proud, and run your fingers over the tiles, feeling the cleaner's unseen labor beneath your touch. A quirky tidbit lingers. Some Romans believed bathhouse steam carried prayers to the gods, a whisper of divine favor in every misty breath. You smile, wondering if your minty salve or that questionable fig sent a plea skyward. The Apodyterium looms ahead, where the attendant from your arrival, still squinting, still grumpy, hands you your folded tunic. "Didn't lose anything, did you?" he grumbles, and you pat your oil vial, grinning. Historians still argue whether bathhouses united Romans or magnified their divides. Some say they blurred class lines. Others argue wealth still ruled, from fancy oils to prime pool spots. You're just glad you survived the social gauntlet, unlike that poor kid's towel back in the frigidarium. You slip into your tunic, the fabric cool against your scrubbed skin, and step toward the exit. The bathhouse's din fades, replaced by the distant clatter of carts and street vendors outside. You glance back, catching the balneater's silhouette on his platform, the entertainer's faint melody, the guard's watchful stare. Every job, from the engineer's pipes to the masseuse's iron hands, built this steamy world, and you're carrying their stories with you, along with a slight lavender scent and a ribbon that's seen better days. You dodge one last bather strutting like he owns the Tiber and mutter, "Easy, Caesar." His huff is the bathhouse's final note, and you step into the evening air. The world outside feels sharper, cooler, as the Roman dusk wraps around you like a soft cloak. Your sandals scuff the cobblestones, each step slower, heavier, as the bathhouse's heat lingers in your bones, a quiet echo of its chaos. The sky's a deep indigo, pricked with early stars, and the streets alive with lanterns and the murmur of night vendors. But your mind drifts back to the pools, the steam, the lives that filled them. You imagine the stokers banking their fires, the cleaners resting their brushes, the entertainers packing their lyres, each slipping into their own twilight. The bathhouse was a world of sweat and song, of grit and grace, and you were part of it, if only for a moment. Your towel's gone, but the ribbon flutters in your hand, a small keepsake of a place that hummed with life. Let the day's bustle fade now. Let the stars take over. And as you find your bed, let the bathhouse's warmth cradle you into sleep, a gentle whisper of mosaic dolphins and lavender.